All right, welcome back to Humans of Grappling. We have a returning guest, first time a guest has returned to the podcast. Ryan Scialoia, how you doing?
Doing great. Thanks for having me on, Mike.
I actually know how to pronounce your last name, so
You do.
yeah, I was proud to say that. So yeah, what's what have you been learning recently that makes you excited about jiu-jitsu?
Oof, that's an easy one.
Oh yeah.
I've been on some deep thoughts late at night about the mechanics of sweeping.
Okay.
So I've been trying to distill the guard position down into much simpler ideas and be able to raise someone's competency in the guard position very quickly.
Mm-hmm.
So what I've been looking at is a lot of the sweeps from open guard have the same mechanics, even though they're expressed in many different ways.
Okay.
So to give you some example, like the tripod sweep, if you or any of your viewers know the humble tripod sweep taught in most fundamentals classes,
Mm-hmm.
looking at why that is taught in the fundamentals class is because it's the most like basic expression of that simple mechanic of pushing on the hip, pulling on the foot, and pulling on the other leg as well. And if you look at a lot of other sweeps, for example, the single leg X guard sweep, the mechanics of the single leg X guard and the tripod sweep are the same.
Mm.
Just
Yeah, yeah, you're pulling the foot, you're pushing the hip, and you're getting their butt to the mat.
yes,
I see.
yes. So
Yeah.
it gives a lot of like purpose and directionality to all of the other sweeps if you understand the foundational mechanics that are behind the techniques. Mike
Mm-hmm.
and I have been on a little bit of a trip lately in our group chats and stuff, saying that techniques are okay, I guess, but there are things way more powerful than techniques themselves.
Mm-hmm.
And so far, I've been looking at distilling all of the mechanics down of the open guard sweep. So I teach the mechanics, and if I teach three or four mechanics, I've shown 30 or 40 sweeps that just are expressions or representations of that mechanic.
Right. Yeah, that's cool, and that's sort of what I've to connect it to my last guest, Greg Souders, is that the sweeping is like your the it's the job of the bottom person to get on top, right? Like that's the idea behind sweeping. You don't want to be on bottom, and you do that by off balancing people. And the off balance here, or he calls it destabilization. I don't know why he likes his own terminology, but most people say off balance or kazushi or whatever. And yeah, getting either the hands or the butt to the mat. And I think that was an interesting like dilemma or interesting like either or that he like encapsulates in his like one paragraph of jujitsu. Like he can summarize jujitsu in like one note card, and I think that was a powerful idea that I walked away with from talking, like listening to all this stuff and then talking to him. Is like, yeah, and that's what I do sweeping too. Is like I like the table leg analogy of like if you take a table leg away from somebody that you've got four posts in your stable. If you take one away, you trap one and you roll them over that, then that's a sweep, right? But it's a yeah. Ultimately, you're trying to get people to their butts. Is like they put them into guard, and that's like a key thing for me in deep half. Is like when I like do a Homer Simpson sweep, I walk their extend their leg out, and then I turn, and the turn to come on top is like putting them to their butt. So that connects a lot of like dots for me. And yeah, like you mentioned, like yeah, mechanics like are threads through everything.
For all the non-10th planet people out there,
Yeah.
which one's the Homer Simpson sweep?
It's a deep half. Well, it's a standard jiu-jitsu terminology, Homer Simpson. So it's
Where
where
you
you're
like
like,
swing over and you take like the knee to the floor?
it's not quite taking the knee to the floor. It's more like you're walking, so you have the knee and hiding the hand. You're walking, 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 and then
Okay.
you turn
Okay. Back
down.
in the other
Yeah,
direction. Yep.
I'm impressed that I can like demonstrate that, and that it like kind of makes sense here. I can
Yeah.
show like yeah. So
My instructor is
yeah.
very Brazilian. He's never the Homer Simpson sweep. He's never gone over
uh,
that exact term, but I know the
I see.
sweep that you're referring to.
I see.
Just to expound, I don't mean to interrupt you. I'm sorry, but just to
No,
expound
no, yeah,
on
go
the
ahead.
point that you're saying is that the off balancing is so vitally important, and I think that it's seldom like not taught enough where people are like, oh yeah, you should off balance your opponent, and it's usually shown as like a detail
Hmm.
in a technique that you're doing, and reversed around, just like the headquarters position in guard passing. A lot of instructors teach that you're going to go to this headquarters position first, and then you're going to do the pass next. But they're not explaining the actual power of the headquarters position, that you could do so many different passes from that particular spot. And I
Hmm.
think about off balancing in the same way. So in a private I had with John, a mutual friend of ours, I taught off balancing as a topic in itself. And from all of the major guards, how are we off balancing? And then creating action reaction where they resist the off balancing in one direction and they give us what we want in the other direction, which
Hmm.
will have sweeps on opposing sides waiting for them, so that we could properly use off balancing to our advantage. Just like on the Homer Simpson sweep, if you want to get that sweep going in one direction, first you start in the opposite direction so that they give the sweep to you. And I
Yep.
think that's so important to teach, recognize, and be able to enact out on the mat.
Yeah, and making like a principle of like they if you off balance them, then they have to react and like correct it, or else they give up something, right? Like that's
Yes.
just as a I don't know how I've been trying to like as I've like understood time the concept of timing better. It's not like seconds of time or anything like that. It's like
Right.
it's like my action, their action, my action, my and then like if I can do more of my actions, then they have to react to my actions,
Yep.
and um, that uh, yeah the more you make them have to react, they're not playing their game. I think that's
Yeah.
the biggest thing. Actually, like I heard of this a long time ago, like from my first instructor, Dave Camarillo. He said like he went and took a private with Marcelo Garcia, and he was like, Marcelo was like, the more you attack, the more they have to defend, and it's like, oh my god, like that, like it's so simple, right? And
Hmm.
it's you don't have to worry about defense if as much. Like I'm sure there's counters and all that kind of stuff, but if you or like Gordon Ryan and Danaher talk about like offensive loops and whatnot, they just kind of I think it's just different perspectives on the same thing.
Yeah. Yeah. I think teaching the when behind a technique is so important,
Hmm.
and that most people teach the how to actually move your body
Yeah,
to make the technique work, which is important. If you don't know how to do that, there's no technique that you're doing. But
sure.
teaching the when, for example, when you off balance someone, you put their hand on the floor, that when is important because then you could lock up a triangle choke. You've
Hmm.
created the one arm in, one arm out situation for the triangle to be then available to you. So there's so many cues, so many ways to show. Okay, this is when you do this technique, and I think that that's lost on a lot of jujitsu practitioners a lot of times.
Hmm. Yeah, because you want to do stuff, but you can't like force it. You can't. It has to be one of the black belts I train with, Richie Castro. He's really like he's very influential in my game, and he's like, yeah, you're just knocking on doors, and then if a door isn't open, you just go to the next one, knock on it, and if it opens, then it should like technique should feel effortless. Like it shouldn't feel like you have to really muscle anything.
Yep. Yep.
And I mean, it works for him because he's like 150 pounds and he like destroys me. So if anybody is like actually good at jiu-jitsu, it's him. Like, because he can like take on much bigger guys, and he's very whatever. He's still like miles ahead of us in technique. Even though I can like use muscle and like kind of overpower him a little bit sometimes. It's just he's still like on my back. He's still a step ahead, a quote unquote step ahead. Whether that exists or not, it's I don't know, like loops and whatever. Like I'm not able to get any of my offense going. He's always like in the pocket. He's doing what he wants to do.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, but so how I guess you've had to like really, since you've been out with several different injuries, hip injuries, and going about learning the stuff without necessarily applying it. How does that work for you?
Well, I got some flashcards over there in the corner that I sift through on instructionals that I like. I make flashcards and I try to write all the important elements down. But there becomes a certain point where you already have like a lot of ideas, or like, let me be more specific. For example, taking the mechanics that I was talking about.
Mm-hmm.
I could go back in my mind and think about like, okay, what are all of the sweeps that I know from open guard? And then I could be like, okay, this one is an expression of this mechanic. This one is an expression of this other mechanic. This one, and I could sort of like reorganize and reclassify different systems in my mind about how I think about things, and I think that is very helpful. And I also have like I still spend a lot of time at the school. I still always am participating in like just showing up to classes, and I like a lot of people ask me questions. I'm always happy to answer any questions or try to answer any questions. You know, even if I don't know it, then that's a great place for me, because then I could learn, research, and try to figure out the answer to that question. And one of my favorite things to do is like drop little nuggets of information based on what I see and where someone's at in that current moment, and then I live vicariously through them. And I see them blossom and become great, and take a piece of what I was saying and add it to their actual game and their actual style. So just being able to reorient my own brain and distill things down into simpler ideas and simpler concepts and expressions of the same thing, I think is important. And then being able to look at jiu-jitsu from all of those different like principles, concepts, contexts, and perspectives, I think it is a great way to like grow intellectually. There's the flashcards for like the actual breadth of the amount of techniques that sometimes that's hard for anybody to like fully wrap their head around. And then also like giving some techniques to some students and then seeing them flourish and them blossom. And I said something along these lines on the Pancration Philosophy podcast, and I don't mean to be like, oh, I saw something cool on an instructional and I told like Joe Schmo to do it over there. I was like, maybe that didn't come out right. But usually there are things that I trust and have used many, many times myself. Or they're from a source that I truly, truly trust, like a Danaher or like a Marcelo Garcia, and that express an idea or a principle that I already know and understand. So I'm not just like trying to YouTube techniques on people and see if they work, you know?
Yeah, and that's interesting because your method, so you still apply it, it's just somebody else is applying it for you, like on your behalf. Like you're delegating, saying, hey, like I think this would work well for you. Let's have you like work on this or whatever. And I think, yeah, that's cool to like a way to pass on your knowledge and use your knowledge without like, I don't know, getting depressed that you're not doing it yourself. Like I've only like I've been out like for, I don't know, a couple weeks with like different like infections and shit like that. I had like a skin infection on my chin. Now I have like cellulitis on my arm. And it's just been, I don't know. I'm going a little stir crazy without training. So I can only imagine what it's like for you and how you have to like like we talked about this last time, but like redefining purpose or refocusing what you get out of training or teaching, and but like your focus is a little bit different than what you expected it to be.
Well, I've fallen in love with jiu-jitsu in just a different way in upgrading the software, as you've said, and using other people's hardware to enact it. But jiu-jitsu is such a powerful tool, and it can be used in many different ways and circumstances, and like it's been wild taking this time to study jiu-jitsu, because then you realize like how much you were missing when you just got like lost in the physicality of things.
Sure.
And you can even see like where a lot of black belts or a lot of people that get that keep on coming to class like get lost in a cycle where they're just like doing physical exercise almost.
Sure.
And that they're not like stimulating their brain and have that constant thirst or hunger to improve and to download new information. So it's been crazy to see almost the other side. I think it's almost equally crazy to just go to a jiu-jitsu class just for a workout when it is such a mentally stimulating and fascinating topic to study.
Yeah, definitely. And I mean, yeah, that's the nerd in us. We're in the like, over analysis camp, or depending however you look at it, we want to just like go fully deep into this thing and know as much as we can about it, even though it's knowing all of it is unknowable. But we want to like figure out how to traverse as much of the technique graph as possible. Like I imagine as like, sort of like nodes and like lines between circles, like you're like a mind map kind of thing, right? Mm-hmm. So you say, oh, the half guard, we can do dogfight, we can do deep half, we can do whatever, and like we can. There's in computer science, they make a big deal about graph theory and like how there are certain properties to nodes and connections between them. And I just say like it's graph traversal. Like we're just going through all these different positions, and we're finding all of the different ways to go between these, like, I mean, depending who you talk to now, they're either defined techniques or they're not, or they don't even exist. Like I don't know what to believe anymore. But I guess that to your point of like passing on technique, I feel like that's a way. I mean, in a way, you're paying it forward. Like you're like, hey, I used this. It worked out well for me. I think it'll work out well for you. It's sort of like, it's how we affect each other. It's how we can like pass on our not our genes, but the memes. Like the original term meme is like this idea that is like ideas have some sort of like not genetic history, but like they have parts to them, and they can be like shaped over time, and they pass from person to person. So in a way, it's how you live forever is like through the ideas that you spread.
Right. A lot of different directions you could go in that. One would
Yeah,
be, is that what you want to do because of your overall fear of death?
yeah,
You you can go into what are memes, where it's
yeah,
like, okay, these are the same things that we were making on cave walls, or like political cartoons are now memes.
yeah.
And then I have a third thought about just what you were saying in half guard, and my professor was always really, really good at half guard. That was like his A game.
Hmm.
How he would express to us the certain mechanic that made the half guard work,
Mm.
uh, rather than the technique itself.
Mm.
Just to
Okay.
give a quick example of
Sure.
that, you feel free to ask me on any of the other things I mentioned, but
Yeah.
like your your leg being pushed outward, your lower leg being pushed outward, and your knee being pushed inward to create that like internal hip rotation,
Hmm.
is such an important idea that encapsulates so many half guard sweeps. So like the lockdown, um, a lot of like what you're doing with the lockdown, right, is you're taking that lower leg and you're torquing it out in a particular direction, which causes that internal rotation on the hip,
Hmm.
and you get a lot of your sweeps from that. The dog fight is the same idea. You're torquing the outside of the knee in that same direction. The
Hmm.
lower leg shift, or the Kosoto hook, as it's sometimes called,
Mm.
like allows you to take the guy's knee off the floor and torque the the leg in such a way that it gives you that half guard sweep. So distilling things down into the actual mechanics are so much more powerful than the technique, because then you just learn, okay, I just need to get really good at manipulating this mechanic throughout all these different methods.
Right, and that's we'll circle back to memes because I think I know you're a meme lord and you
Thank you.
you
Yes.
enjoy you enjoy memes. So, but
Thank you
yeah,
for the recognition.
sticking on half guard for a little bit. Um, yeah, or just guards and sweeping in general. That's kind of what I've found with knowing how to, like with the table leg analogy, like where I can find sweeps where like nobody's taught me a sweep here. Like I've never learned the specific technique for it, but it's just like, oh, I have this guy's arm, I have it covered, or actually this one is I'm particularly proud of this one. So it's like they have like a head and arm choke on me, and they're trying to get a head and arm choke, but that means their elbow is committed to like the side of my neck, and I can like cover that, and then I can turn and roll, and then come on top. Like that's if they're like too far like over on, if they have their body weight on me, then I can like turn and roll them over. No, nobody has taught me that like whatever defense or anything like that. It's just like, okay, I have a table leg, I've secured a table leg, and I can push them over that way and put them on put them in guard. So yeah, knowing how things work is valuable, but yeah, like how do you teach that to a white belt? It's like you have to give them something, right? Or like how do you teach white belts? What's like the first thing you teach white belts?
Well, that's a whole different topic. But I think first, before you even teach the white belt, you got to know like why he walked in the door.
I
So
see.
being able to like establish like what are the goals of the person that is coming through the door, and to try to teach them in a way that that benefits them the most, and like provides an actual value, or to use jujitsu as a tool to
Mm-hmm.
help that person achieve those goals, I think is like step number one.
Mm-hmm. Sure. Yeah, because you have to know what they want. Like what are you trying to get out of this, and get
Right.
at least show it to them the first day so they sign up, and then do a bait and switch. No, just kidding. They sign up for one reason and then they stick around for others, right? Like
Right.
That's sort of like, you can't, that's one thing that I've found is that the culture in the gym is what makes people stick around. Like that's my coach Casey, he says culture is king, or like culture is number one. Like people have to want to be here and like the people here, because we're gonna see each other every day. Like we can't like be I don't know, we can't have like a negative culture where nobody wants to show up and like nobody keeps their membership on renewal or whatever. So yeah, for a person, they may sign up for self-defense, they may sign up for fitness, they may sign up because they want to train UFC, bro. Like, then they like stick around for the people. And that's sort of like how I feel is jiu-jitsu's secret sauce, is that it's a place, it's a social place that is imbued with great meaning. And that is a rare thing to have as an adult in this current day and age.
Well said.
Yeah.
Well said.
Yeah, so it's because I was just reading this. This is like a big like sticking point for me, because I'm like, I read this thread on Hacker News. It's like this nerd tech bro website where we like complain about our easy lives, and we Ryan has taken some programming classes, and yeah, he somewhat sympathizes, but and yesterday there was this thread of like people debating whether to return to office or to work from home indefinitely, and the one guy who was like most pro return to office was like, I have no friends. I'm in a city, I don't know anybody in the city, and I use work as a place for socialization. And I'm like, I don't need that. I've worked remotely for 5 years now, and I've never felt the need to like go back into the office for socialization, because jiu-jitsu is my social life. Like that is the thing that I get to see my friends every day, like 5 days a week. That's unheard of in adult life. Like you have to like plan weeks in advance for going out on a Friday night with your buddies, or buddies and their wives or whatever. Like having having partners involved is also tricky. Whatever. There's a lot of like there's a lot of planning around normal, quote unquote normal adult gatherings, but jiu-jitsu is like, oh yeah, I expect you to show up there every day. All right, I'll show up there too. Like it's a very unique place. I think it's, yeah, what makes it deeply meaningful is like, we're social creatures. We find meaning in the interconnectedness between each other. And yeah, I don't know. I've had that one chambered, so I needed to get that rant out. So, but yeah, how have you seen socializing in jiu-jitsu like help you, or how's it? I don't know. I'll let you rant for a second. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, I think you summed it up very well, and feeling like the jiu-jitsu school is like a second home, or a home away from home, I think is so important as a culture to sort of cultivate in your school. And if you have that, you truly have something special.
Right.
And, yeah, I mean, so many times I've, when nothing's feeling like it's going right, I go to the school and sort of just like take my mind off things. I could focus on something else, and I have tons of people that I could run something by or ask advice from, or people that are more experienced than me in life or in certain areas. I could always run things by them, and yeah, I think building that camaraderie is huge. It's important, and a lot of times the reason why people actually stay.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. And the I talked to this. Me and my buddies talk about like, have I ever regretted going to jiu-jitsu? No. Like, have I ever like, has there ever been a day of like, fuck, I shouldn't have come? Or no. Like, you feel great afterwards. Like, you always like, it may be a drag to like try to get there, especially at 6 a.m. It like my first thought every morning is like, fuck. Like, as soon as my alarm goes off, I'm like just suddenly whatever woken up like that's not my favorite thing to do, but I do it every day or every weekday, just because I know my motivations change like by the day almost. Like, it's either, oh, I gotta go there because I need to help so and so with this thing, or I'm preparing for a tournament, or like I have like, I don't know, 10 different things that like get me out of bed, and it's like a different thing every day. So I guess it's something like, but at the end of the day, it's like I've never regretted going to jiu-jitsu, and my buddy who like has gotten hurt like he got hurt like 6 months ago. He tore his bicep on a shot attempt on me. Like, I sprawled, and like I did the tiniest like whatever, not even a sprawl, but I don't
Like
know,
a hip check.
like a down block, like the tiniest little like just moving my leg back, and it like popped his bicep. So that thing was gonna go anyway. So I felt kind of bad, but even he said like, oh well, he was he was still glad to train that day just because he got to train jiu-jitsu. So it's yeah, it's a strange thing where it's like we go there because it's hard, because it's like a grueling like uphill grind, and we're doing it with people that we eventually care about. Like, when you first walk in, you're like, I don't know any of these people, and it's always hard for the newbie to come in because we all know each other. We all know that you're not that you're new, and it's on the culture to say, oh hey, how's it going? I'm Mike, and like for it to be a welcoming culture rather than like, oh, who's this new whatever weirdo or whatever, because we're all weirdos. Like, it's 10th Planet. How like we're not full of ourselves like that.
I think if you're looking back, what should we call this episode?
Yeah.
The first thing I think of when I wake up in the morning is fuck.
Yeah. All right, done.
That's a funny line, and some can be relatable, I think, to a lot of people. But anyway,
Yeah.
I couldn't agree more with what you said, and that's something that's truly special about jiu-jitsu, and not even with jiu-jitsu, with other martial arts as well. So,
Sure.
something that I've found to be a important part of my life. So
Definitely. Cool. Well, yeah. So, since you're also our resident meme lord, like, what thoughts do you have around memes, or the importance of them? How are they? Good, bad, funny, not funny?
the nature of memes, huh? Well, I think in some sense they're important. I think that they could say things that words have a hard time saying on their own a lot of times.
Yeah.
Um, I've been sending my dad every Alex Jones meme. He's a big Alex Jones fan that I could find, and
Yeah.
man, some of those are so funny. Honestly, the
Right.
thing I like most about memes are that they are so funny. I'm
Yeah.
a not a comedian, but I love comedy,
Yeah.
and there are so many memes that make me laugh, and I think that's their greatest probably asset or utility.
Right. Like, it's a because you don't, with memes, you sort of, like if you see a meme for the first time, you don't really get it until you see like more of them, and then you get like the theme of it. And then since we've had memes for, I don't know, 10 years now, we all kind of understand the image evokes a certain emotion, and then there's like usually text around it that like that makes the joke or something like that. So
Yeah.
They've come a long way from like Success Kid. You remember Success Kid meme? No?
Oh, yes. Yes. Yes.
Like
Okay.
or so yeah, I just saw an Instagram reel about him. He's like 16 now.
It's crazy, right? It's crazy to
To
grow
make
up.
you to make you feel old. Success Kid is like driving now, which is kind of crazy, but it's a way to like that it's a shared encapsulation of meaning, and that shared expectation. I think that's how the comedy comes about, is that we expect it to be follow a certain formula, and then we're like, yes, it followed the formula. Ha, that's funny.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, there's so much creativity
Mm-hmm.
that could be in these memes. It could be literally about virtually anything. So many movies get chopped up and become memes, like movie scenes and
Right.
classic. There's so many people, like the crazy girlfriend
Mm-hmm.
meme, the one with the veins poking out of the guy's head.
Yeah.
Meme.
Right.
And I mean, there's so many, and there's like a certain meta where there's like a certain chain, like evolution of how the meme progresses through time, just like how there is in jiu-jitsu and a lot of other things.
Sure.
And it's kind of interesting to track the current meta of the meme. Sometimes like you need to like be a part of the different stages of the meta of the meme to be able to understand the meme later.
Yeah.
Where it's evolved to such a point where you try to like, show this to someone who's not paid attention to this in this way, and they're like, "What even is this?"
Right.
It's a interesting and powerful tool, and I've probably spent too much of my life looking at memes. I saw this meme that was actually hilarious, where it's a scene from Breaking Bad where he's like screaming in his basement because all of his money is gone,
Uh-huh.
and it's this picture of him like in complete agony where everything is like closing down around him,
Mm-hmm.
and the meme says, when it's seconds before the end of your life, and instead of memories with your families, just a bunch of memes. And
Right.
man, that is so funny and true.
That's hilarious. Yeah, because the internet takes up a large portion of our lives now. Like it's not
Yeah.
just like the psychological effect of that is we have no idea like how this shapes people. Because I kind of like I grew up with the internet. Like I had an AOL connection ever since I could remember, and then it was a cable modem, and then now we have like kids are getting cell phones like out of the womb. So
Yeah.
it's a it's a wild technology that distributes ideas like memes, like not just like funnies, but like also, I don't know, just you have the world's information at your fingertips, and what we want to do is like laugh at cat pictures and like I don't know, just we do the most like base stuff. Like we don't want to do any work. Like we don't want to like go read about like philosophy or business. And it's just we want to whatever, turn our brains off and let the bright pocket screen do the thinking. Versus while you're watching TV, while you might be on your laptop, like we have all these screens in our lives that hold all of the world's information, but we don't want to go look at it.
Yep. On my YouTube channel, my most popular videos are videos of cats and
Mm,
dogs. Just like cute videos of cats and dogs. I'm
yeah,
trying to explain like the most important jiu-jitsu concepts and philosophies. It's
yeah,
got like, 20 views,
yeah,
and then it's like 13,000 views on this dog video I just
right,
posted.
yeah,
Where, it is what it is. It is
yeah.
what it is.
It's the algorithm, and I guess it's good to be diversified. Like if you're going to be a YouTube creator, then yeah, maybe your channel is yeah half jujitsu, half whatever your dogs and cats. So I don't know. It's interesting. It's interesting how that I was like looking at jujitsu YouTube, like the big jujitsu YouTube accounts. Like I was like just kind of thinking in my head. I was like, okay, what would it take to be like a real quote unquote real jujitsu podcaster? And it's like it's very like I mean, obviously very time intensive. It's like heavy into content creation, heavy like you're creating everything. Like um the thumbnail, like I don't do anything with my thumbnails, even though it's super important for the algorithm. And you have to like wordsmith the title. Um Actually, yeah, I listened to Mr. Beast on Lex Friedman. He like talked about how his brain is just tuned for making YouTube videos, and it's just a processor for okay, what's the title, what's the thumbnail, like that's all he needs to like think of, and then the video can work itself out.
Yeah. Yeah, I saw that same interview, and Mr. Beast is incredible.
Yeah,
He's
yeah,
incredible. There's so many views. He's got more views than Super Bowls or all the major like sitcoms, and
mm-hmm.
like more views than like Seinfeld. Like it's crazy
Right,
how many people have watched his stuff.
yeah, yeah, and I've never watched any of his stuff. That's the strange. That's how I know I'm getting old. Is that I have no idea who the current YouTube creators are. I don't like listen to any of their stuff. I don't watch any of their stuff. Like the only YouTube I consume is like financial stuff, maybe some jujitsu here and there, uh, or like documentary, like history, investigation kind of things, like where people, or I guess like I listen to like watch Wisecrack or used to, not too much anymore, but like video essays. Basically, like you could read this, like they could like just post this as a blog, and like talk about just you could read it, but it's not as entertaining. So they make a 10-minute video with animations and things to go along with it, just because we don't want to think too much. We just want to sit back and watch something.
Yeah, I don't recommend Mr. Beast's video for the actual content itself, but
Uh-huh.
like if you want to see, I watched a bunch of his videos, and I have a list written down somewhere of like all the things that he did that were like powerful and right, where
Mm-hmm.
he's got an instantaneous hook that
Mm,
is at the beginning of each one of his videos that has something to do with the actual title of the
mm-hmm.
video.
I
The
see.
amount of cuts that he makes, where there's like every 3 seconds at least there's a cut. The amount of brightness and the lighting that
Mm,
is going on, the amount of retention that he's able to garnish from his videos. You're really watching an expert at work who's really being intentional to create these viral videos over and over and over again.
mm-hmm.
And the more I watched, the more I started to understand his formula. And
Mm-hmm.
I think that could be something of valuable to you trying to create your own platform as well.
Yeah, yeah, but I don't know. I'm not totally sold on it yet. Like I don't know. Podcasts are easy because we can just create an hour of content here, and then we can post it, and we'll be done. Like I don't have to like cut up like a 10-minute video of like yeah hook and then whatever. But if I really wanted to yeah maximize it, then yeah I would cut out that I wake up in the morning say fuck and then like put it at the front, and then like and then pay off on the title, and then yeah I don't know. I guess maybe I'll do that. Maybe I'll do that with this, and we'll see what the retention is on it or the metrics, because yeah it's like a it's a gamification. Is all these metrics are I don't know. You want to see numbers go up. It's good. It's a good feeling to see numbers go up and see things do well. And yeah, YouTube, Instagram, all these are engineered to promote engagement from consumers and producers.
Yeah, I
So,
think the Lex Friedman show with Mr. Beast, they gave like a great like balance or different perspectives. In
mm,
Lex Friedman was like just trying to do whatever he felt would be best for the art of whatever he was doing,
yeah,
and how much like Mr. Beast has like optimized
hmm,
his system.
yeah,
And I thought it was a fascinating conversation between them.
sure, yeah, and that's kind of what I've thought of is like I guess the podcast is called Humans of Grappling. So, and I have a full schedule this week, which is kind of crazy. I'm talking to you. I'm talking
Awesome.
to like maybe three, maybe four other people this week, which is kind of
Awesome.
wild. But, um, yeah, I this was on hiatus for like a month and a half or 2 months because I just didn't have my shit together. But it's interesting how like people just want to get on talk on podcasts and who I'm able to talk to just because I can say, oh, I have a podcast, and people treat it like this it's a special thing, but it's not. It's just us talking. Like
Yeah.
it's not an official thing. Like it's not that serious of a thing.
Yeah.
So yeah, I don't know.
Just like
It's
memes, it's not that serious
yeah,
until it is.
exactly, yeah. Until memes like reshape society, until yeah, your podcast is now swinging presidential races and whatnot,
Right.
right? Like that. That's the you. I don't know. It's the chaos theory. Butterfly flapping its wings in one part of the world leads to a tornado somewhere else, right? You have no idea what you're contributing to because you just put out whatever message you want to put out, you can, and you can at scale. Like if it catches on, somebody reposts it, reshares it, like it can reach. You have no idea who or how many people, and I think that's the main reason why I wanted to do this. Is like I just want to get more of my ideas out there and like my ability to, I don't know. I guess my ability to try to like think about things, but I'm not good at talking about them, so I have to like work on that skill. So thank you for being a drilling dummy today
My
on
my
that.
pleasure. My pleasure.
Yeah.
If I could give you a thought experiment
Uh,
or something to walk away with, I want you to think about how many. I know you're a lover of half guard. Half
sure.
guard is one of your favorite positions.
Mm-hmm.
How many techniques are expressed by the mechanic of being able to torque the guy's lower leg to create that internal hip rotation? You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. Because what's let me, I'll answer that in a second. But what's interesting for like when I've been training with I train with this former MMA fighter, uh, really high level. He sits on the half guard leg, like from top. He like pinches my bottom half guard leg, and I think that's a response. It's like a pin. It's like keeping me there,
Hmm.
and I'm unable to access his lower leg when he does that because he's sitting on it. So I mean, plus like he's in half guard, he can just like whatever throw strikes and like that's his mo. Like that's the game of his sport. So yeah, you don't necessarily want to like pass the guard in MMA because you can just like um, throw bombs from half guard. So that's an interesting like thing I've picked up on, and I'm trying to like play with that. I'm like, okay, like how do I, from a top person perspective, like I can just pin the guy here, just
Hmm.
sitting on their bottom leg because the bottom leg, as you as you've I pointed out to you, I guess, for the first time. I don't know how you made it to black belt without hearing about you have to control the bottom leg to prevent them
Right.
from standing up.
Right.
And just kidding. I'm not questioning
You're
your
good.
black belt at all or anything
No,
like
you're
that.
good. That was
Uh,
a great concept that I've
yeah,
thought a lot about. So I
yeah,
appreciate you telling me about it.
right. But so it's the same thing. Like you're just from the top player, you're pinching that bottom leg, and they can't get up. Like if you're in an MMA fight, just stand up, bro. Well, you can't. So you're pinching it, and then you can like throw your strikes from there. So to get back around to your question about uh, how many techniques, I don't know, dogfight, deep half, probably uh, some form of X guard, maybe like it's a way to pull them, and then if they correct, then you can get underneath them. So I don't know. I would say dozens, like just to be conservative. I'm sure there's because that's like you said, it controls their hip, like you're internally rotating that, and since you're locking out their hip, then they have to address that first. Like otherwise they're gonna blow their own knee out, right? So like we talked about earlier is timing and the more you attack, the more they have to defend. So what's your what answer were you looking for the thought experiment?
Just as you think and you go through your day,
Yeah.
I want you to be like, okay, this technique, this technique, this technique, this technique, and see how many
Mm.
you can think up that
Okay.
are just different expressions of that same mechanic.
I see.
And to talk about the MMA fighter who um, like sits back in the top half guard,
Hmm.
there's so many ways to like reframe the way that you think about certain positions, like we were talking about in the beginning of this podcast,
Yeah.
where half guard is a position where it's one of the best pinning positions.
Hmm.
You solidified the guy to the ground in such a way that it's very difficult for him to get up in either direction.
Hmm.
And you even see in MMA a lot of times people putting themselves back into the half guard just for its utility
Right.
of being a great pinning position. And that's like the modern meta of MMA
Yeah.
currently, I believe.
Hmm.
And then things like the off balancing from the bottom position, where you can off balance him, you could push him backwards, which would relieve some of the weight on your leg, and the use of a proper underhook, where you get a really deep underhook and you're able to put his hands on the floor behind you to be
Hmm.
able to open up that lower leg shift and to be able to express that mechanic in many different ways, I think is important. So you learn half guard, and then you learn, okay, here's 800 techniques from half guard, but can we distill it down and think about them as different mechanics, different concepts, different ideas, and the different principles that are actually making things work here, so that you just realize that all of these techniques are just different ways of expressing the same thing.
I guess what's the to be devil's advocate here? Like I totally agree. Like I think it's intellectually satisfying to like understand all these things are the same thing, but for the uninitiated or somebody who doesn't want to think that much, like why go through this exercise? What would they get out of it if they weren't? I don't know. I just teach me like 5 techniques, bro, and then I can win UFC. I can say I train UFC.
I hear you. Like there
Yeah.
has to be some understanding of the techniques to be able to understand the mechanics that are behind them, you
Yeah.
know?
Right.
But I think the more that you show up to jiu-jitsu class and the more that you learn,
Hmm.
um, you come back to these techniques over and over and over and over again.
Hmm.
And a lot of times you come back to them with a new perspective.
Hmm.
So I think trying to distill in the student's mind what the the perspective is of someone who's really looked at this technique many times, and for them to be able to get that early
Mm-hmm.
is really important for their development.
Mm-hmm.
And rather than trying to like master all of these different techniques that you'll be thinking about that involve this inwards internal hip rotation,
Mm-hmm.
that you're actually just finding different ways of expressing that same mechanical idea over and over again, and you just have to get better at one thing rather than trying to get better at the however many techniques you figure out that this thing actually is.
Sure. Yeah. Yeah, that makes sense. And I guess, yeah, like it's interesting to, yeah, grow your, like my buddy calls it grappling IQ, where you have a better sense of how to, your computer has a higher CPU, like you have more processing power. The more experience you have, the more mat time you have, the more you see the same thing or similar things, you can start to connect the dots between the two and start to see, like, for me, when I first started working wrestling for trials, like a lot, like 2 years ago, I started to see is like, oh, this is sweeping. Like I'm trying to like sweep them just standing, like
Yes.
because I had just sat on my butt for so long, and I just saw everything
Yes.
as a sweep, and it's just like, oh, I'm trying to get his butt to the ground, or I'm trying to get like. And Greg the other day like solidified this even more. Is like, you either get their hands to the ground or their butt to the ground. Like that. Those are the two goals. Like your body will figure it out, how to accomplish those goals. So,
To
yeah.
give a coding example, it would be like asking why why not write out, the longest possible way to write this code, or
Hmm.
why not have like a short little sentence that like gives meaning to everything that you would write out code wise.
There you go.
It's important to distill it down to those simpler one sentence nuggets and those one sentence uh, wisdom ideas.
Right. No, yeah, no, I'm proud. No, Harvard has taught you well. And in speaking of coding, you've gone into ChatGPT a lot.
Yes, yes.
So what's been your experience? What's the meta, or what are the skills that you're developing with ChatGPT? What excites you about it?
Man, I've asked it so many different questions, and I find that it's just fascinating to hear its responses a lot of times. I
Hmm.
ask it questions in things that I know a lot about, uh, which is basically jiu-jitsu.
Uh-huh.
Um, and then, it's fascinating to see, if it can come up with a better answer than me on my own specialty.
Hmm.
Um, and sometimes it does. I'm like, damn,
Oh
like
wow.
what a great answer that was.
At risk of being automated, like
Yeah.
we won't. Yeah, black belts will lose jobs. We're gonna ChatGPT is gonna put everybody out of business.
Well, it's funny you say that because it's not very good at explaining the actual technique itself. It doesn't understand like how a body actually works. Like what are the steps that I'm able to use with my body to make the actual technique work or not work. But
Uh-huh.
it's interesting. Like one thing that I've been doing that's just been like so mind-boggling with it is I have it break down the best works from all of the greatest philosophers, and then I
Mm.
have it write me an essay on the intersection between those philosophers' best ideas and how it relates to jiu-jitsu.
Oh wow.
And it does it on like such a ridiculous level,
Uh-huh.
and like gives you like ridiculous insights that you otherwise wouldn't have been able to come up with on your own.
Interesting. Like it gives you the insights without doing the work. Like you
Yeah.
don't have to go and read the books. It just comes to you,
Yep.
and you get to benefit from that. I wonder that nothing can possibly go wrong with this. No.
Sounds totally fine, totally safe.
Right.
Nothing, yeah, could go wrong.
Right.
Yeah, And I like it. It could write you a business plan on anything. It could write you a poem on anything. It could write you an essay on anything, a short story, a business plan, and it could do all of these things in a form of anybody. So I
Mm.
had it write me a Thanksgiving Day food recipe in the theme of John Denneher, and it did
Oh,
it
really?
perfectly. So it's just like an unbelievable tool. I've never seen anything quite like it.
Hmm.
And just asking it crazy, crazy questions like, um, what are the most like high level math ideas that intersect with philosophy,
Hmm.
and having it answer that. Different like perceptions around the concept of infinity. I enjoy hearing its responses on different perspectives on the creation of the universe. Like, what other theories are there besides the Big Bang, and like what has been um, like what are those theories, and what like evidence has been found to substantiate those theories. And I mean, it's just really blown my mind in
Hmm.
how incredible of a tool that it could be if used properly.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's the thing. It's like you have to learn how to prompt, like write these, like, how long are your prompts? Do you like really? You have to be fairly specific on what you want in order for it to spit out what you want, right?
In some ways, yes. In
Uh-huh.
some ways, being more specific is a better way to get your question answered, but
Hmm.
sometimes being more open-ended
Hmm.
is a curious idea to see how um, the AI thinks. Like, for
Gotcha.
example, I said, what would it take for you to be sentient? And like hearing
Oh shit.
its own thoughts on that, even
Uh-huh.
though that's a pretty open-ended question,
Right.
was interesting, you know?
Gotcha. Yeah. So you're going to be a Chat GPT engineer, prompt engineer, writing up prompts for whatever marketing copy and whoever will pay you for it. I think that might be the next, like, I don't know. That's certainly an idea for like trying to monetize this thing, right? Like if you're spending all this time, you've got more. You're basically a blue belt in the early days of jiu-jitsu, where everyone else is a white belt. Like you're this rare thing who's like spent crazy amounts of time on this Chat GPT, actually know how it works, or kind of at least, and you just know more than everybody else. So I feel like it's a zigging where everyone's zagging, and I don't know. I would just encourage you to pursue that if that's something you're like truly interested in. So
Thank you,
yeah,
thank you. Yeah, it's fascinating to hear about it and
right,
to like play with it as a tool.
yeah, cool. Um, so I saw you guys just announced a seminar in North Carolina. Do you want to talk a little bit about that?
Sure, sure. We're having a super camp where some of the people were in a group chat. Some of the people in the group chat, Caesar, who runs Stillness Academy, will be at his school in Beaufort, South
Oh,
Carolina.
South Carolina. Sorry,
No, you're
I
fine.
said North Carolina. I don't know.
All good.
Sorry.
And I'll be teaching there. It'll be a 3-day camp, and Caleb, who owns Alchemy Wrestling, will be there, and Mitch, who is a Muay Thai specialist and biomechanics expert as well, will be there. And we'll be having a 3-day like super seminar where we're all teaching our different sort of approaches to like similar ideas.
Mm-hmm.
And uh, you guys, everyone listening is more than welcome to come out and see that. And it should be great.
Dope. Yeah, and that's because yeah, all you guys are experts in different things, and it's. I mean, you and Caesar like are both black belts in jiu-jitsu, but like his thing is like completely different, like very holistic, whatever. Still, it's Stillness Academy. Somebody made a joke of like fidgeting academy, of like something that would like throw him off or something like that. I don't know, but yeah. So I think yeah, that's an interesting intersection of perspectives. And like ChatGPT, somebody going to that camp will get an intersection of insights, but they'll have to actually do the work and not just have it served up to them.
Yeah.
So yeah, cool. Well, thanks for hopping on, Ryan.
My pleasure.
Let's do it again at some point. And
Awesome. I want to be ahead of everybody on the most attended podcast. Yes, I'm already at number 2. We got to get me ahead at number 3 soon.
Exactly. All right. Sounds good.
Have a good one, Mike. Thank you so much for everything.
You too. All right. See you.